The other two elements that I said were particularly central to Husserl's work were the epoche or bracketing, which we do, and then the phenomenological attitude. To take bracketing next, at first it seems somewhat perverse, but what Husserl meant by this was removing from ourselves prejudices, judgments that enter into our perceptions, and trying to look at things as they are. Now, before we dismiss this as idealistic and impossible, it is worth remembering that Husserl came from a tradition of philosophy which did stress the ideal and the idealistic. And when I consider Husserl's cultural importance a little later, I will come back to that. But nevertheless, any politician, any government minister asks us to see things as they are without prejudice. It is, of course, a way in which they have constructed the data, presented the argument. The phenomenological attitude asks us to put those kinds of assumptions to one side, and bracketing is the method which is used to achieve this. It is a self-conscious and it is a difficult task. It does require an analysis of the meaning units of a transcript, of the video, or what observation, or whatever it is. But it is the self-conscious search to put those attitudes to one side and see the appearance of events in consciousness for what they are. Now, this is not a million miles from the advice that's given in research about neutrality, about not taking up one particular point of view, not supporting one particular argument. It does, of course, go further than this, but it is not something that is a million miles from what you will be familiar with in research methodology anyway. Making that bracketing, doing that, means standing aside. I will come a little bit later on the methods to it, but let me just give you one quick example now from Garfinkel's work, where he got his students to treat their homes, because most of them were living at home, as places which were strange, so that the familiar things they were familiar with, they were to treat as strange, to not make the assumptions of being familiar at home. So they therefore asked their parents or whatever if they could get the milk from the fridge. Parents, of course, would say, well, what's got into you? Always politeness, etc. And were very soon fed up with their sons and daughters asking for obvious basic things. But what Garfinkel, and behind that, this Husserlian concern with bracketing, was to conduct work that enabled us to put these taken for granted natural attitude assumptions to one side. Good interviews for television explore sensitively natural attitude to reveal it, to make the phenomenological attitude clear, which of course is able to locate and explain such a description. So for the phenomenologist in the Husserlian tradition, research is exploring what is in the natural attitude, taking a phenomenological attitude, which is to break with it as a natural attitude, to locate the structures of consciousness, the structures of knowledge that are there, that hold for that individual. Now, there are objections that can be made to phenomenology and to Husserlian phenomenology. I've referred to the idealistic aspect of it. How far is it actually concerned with material explanations and so on? But nevertheless, as a research tradition which enables us to question and to find ways, as phenomenological researchers have done, to question taken for granted experience. It is a powerful method and approach. And considering disasters, and here I'm thinking particularly of natural disasters in the world, flooding, etc., or house burning or something of that sort, are some of the more obvious ones, but nevertheless a disaster can be entirely private to a family. And what are the taken for granted assumptions that are going on there? So I hope that you will see that just starting from a very quick summary of Husserl's work, some of which I will follow up in a PowerPoint, we have a tool which we can take further in the next talk through the work of Max Weber, and then more particularly that of Alfred Schutz.